The hidden arsenal. The morning sun cast long shadows across New Geneva's pristine streets, but Admiral Sarah Chen wasn't fooled by the peaceful facade. High above, the dark silhouettes of hegemony patrol ships drifted like vultures, their sensors sweeping the city below. For 23 years, humanity had lived under their watchful eyes, ever since the day the aliens had arrived with their ultimatum: submit or burn. Most humans had chosen submission. Sarah had chosen something else entirely. She walked through the crowded marketplace, her civilian clothes hiding the weight of command that pressed on her shoulders. To any observer, she appeared to be just another citizen going about her daily business. The hegemony scanners would detect nothing unusual about her biosignature, nothing to suggest she was anything more than a middle-aged woman buying groceries. They had no idea she commanded the most dangerous fleet in human history. 3 blocks from the market, Sarah descended into what appeared to be a maintenance tunnel. The heavy metal door sealed behind her with a soft hiss, and suddenly the world changed. The rough concrete walls gave way to polished steel corridors lined with holographic displays. The air hummed with barely contained energy, and the scent of ozone filled her nostrils. Welcome to Facility 7, the beating heart of humanity's secret rebellion. Dr. Marcus Webb was waiting for her in the central command chamber, his weathered face creased with exhaustion and excitement in equal measure. Behind him, a massive holographic display showed the skeletal framework of a starship unlike anything the galaxy had ever seen. "Admiral," Webb said, his voice barely containing his enthusiasm. "We've done it. The quantum resonance chambers are finally stable. Project Phantom is ready for field testing." Sarah studied the display, her trained eye taking in every detail of the revolutionary design. The ship's hull seemed to shimmer and fade at the edges, as if it couldn't quite decide whether it existed in normal space. This was humanity's answer to 23 years of oppression. Warships that could phase through matter itself, invisible to conventional sensors, capable of striking from within the enemy's own defenses. "How many can we field?" she asked. 12 prototype vessels are complete," Webb replied. "Another 36 are in various stages of construction across our hidden shipyards. The quantum drives have exceeded all expectations. We can phase through. Their shields, their hulls, even their weapon systems. To them we'll be like ghosts." Sarah nodded grimly. Ghosts. That's exactly what they needed to be. The door hissed open behind them, and Captain Elena Vasquez entered, still wearing her EVA suit from her latest reconnaissance mission. Her dark eyes held the haunted look of someone who had seen too much, but her voice was steady as she delivered her report. "The intelligence was accurate, Admiral. The hegemony is preparing for something big. I managed to infiltrate their data networks during the supply run to Kepler Station. They're calling it the final cleansing." The words sent a chill through the room. For months, their network of spies and sympathizers had been picking up fragments of hegemony communications about a secret project. Now they had a name for their worst fears. "Show me," Sarah commanded. Elena activated her portable holoprojector, and the air filled with stolen hegemony documents. The alien script was harsh and angular, but the human translation scrolled alongside, it in cold clinical language: population reduction protocols, genetic targeting systems, species elimination timelines. "They're planning to wipe out humanity," Elena said quietly. "Not just us, but 17 other species they've classified as evolutionary dead ends. The Kethar, the Morvani, the Zentari, all of us." Sarah's hands clenched into fists. She had known this day would come. The hegemony had never intended to keep humanity as permanent subjects. They were simply too proud, too stubborn, too unpredictable. Better to eliminate them entirely and start fresh with more compliant species. "Timeline?" she asked. 6 months, Elena replied. "They're using the Harvest Festival as cover. When the bulk of their fleet is deployed for the celebrations, they'll begin systematic sterilization of target worlds." Dr. Webb looked up from his datapad, his face pale. "Admiral, we're not ready. Even with the quantum drives, we only have a handful of ships. The hegemony has thousands of vessels, battle stations, planet killers. Then we'll have to make do with what we have," Sarah said firmly. How long until the prototype fleet is operational? 2 weeks for basic systems, another month for full combat readiness, Webb replied. You have 1 week, Sarah told him. After that, we launch whether we're ready or not. The next 7 days passed in a blur of feverish activity. Deep in the asteroid belt between Mars and Jupiter, hidden shipyards that had taken decades to construct worked around the clock. The quantum drives, humanity's greatest secret, hummed to life one by one. The technology was barely understood even by its creators. Dr. Webb's team had stumbled upon the principles almost by accident while researching quantum entanglement communications. They had discovered that by manipulating quantum fields in specific patterns, they could shift matter between dimensional phases. A ship equipped with quantum drives could become intangible, passing through solid objects like a ghost walking through walls. The hegemony's sensors, designed to detect conventional matter and energy, were completely blind to phased objects. Their weapons, calibrated for normal spacetime, couldn't lock onto quantum-shifted targets. In theory, humanity's tiny fleet could strike from within the enemy's own formations, appearing and disappearing at will. In theory. Sarah stood on the bridge of the UES Prometheus, the flagship of humanity's quantum fleet. Around her, 11 other vessels hung in space, their hulls flickering between solid and translucent as their quantum drives cycled through calibration sequences. Each ship represented years of sacrifice, stolen resources, and desperate hope. Final systems check, she called out. Quantum drives at full power, reported Lieutenant Commander Hayes from the engineering station. Weapon systems armed and ready, added Tactical Officer Morrison. Sensor sweeps clear. No hegemony activity detected, confirmed Communications Specialist Park. Sarah took a deep breath, feeling the weight of humanity's future on her shoulders. In 6 months, the hegemony would begin their final cleansing. Every human being on Earth and the colonies would be dead unless they acted now. Captain Vasquez, she said, turning to her second-in-command. Signal the fleet. All ships, prepare for quantum phase transition. Elena's fingers danced across her control panel. Fleet reports ready, Admiral. Then let's show the galaxy what humanity can do, Sarah said grimly. All ships, engage quantum drives. Ghost protocol is now active. The Prometheus shimmered and faded, becoming a translucent outline against the stars. Around them, the rest of the fleet followed suit, 12 vessels becoming living phantoms in the void. They were invisible to conventional sensors, intangible to conventional weapons, and absolutely lethal to anyone who stood in their way. The first target was a hegemony patrol fleet stationed near the outer colonies. 3 heavy cruisers and 6 destroyers, their crews confident in their technological superiority. They had no idea that death was approaching, invisible and inexorable. Sarah watched the tactical display as the Prometheus and her escorts closed. The distance. The enemy ships continued their lazy patrol patterns, their sensors detecting nothing but empty space. It would have been almost too easy, if not for the stakes involved. Range to target? She asked. 50,000 kilometers in closing, Elena reported. Enemy fleet maintains standard formation. No indication they've detected our approach. Weapons hot, Sarah commanded. All ships, prepare for simultaneous strike. On my mark, phase to come, normal space, and engage. The seconds ticked by with agonizing slowness. Sarah thought of Earth, defenseless and unaware of the doom approaching in 6 months. She thought of the colonies, the children who would never grow up to see the stars. She thought of every human being who had ever dreamed of freedom from their alien oppressors. Mark, she said quietly. The quantum fleet materialized inside the hegemony formation like avenging angels. The Prometheus appeared directly between 2 enemy cruisers, her weapons already charging. Around her, 11 other phantoms became reality, their guns trained on vital targets. The hegemony crews had perhaps 3 seconds to register what was happening before the first volley struck home. Quantum-enhanced plasma cannons tore through unshielded hulls, designed to be fired from impossible angles with surgical precision. The lead cruiser's engine core exploded in a brilliant flash, sending fragments spinning through space. But the true horror for the hegemony forces was what came next. As their weapons desperately tried to target the human ships, half the fleet simply vanished again, phasing back into quantum space before reappearing at new positions. It was like fighting smoke, like trying to catch light with bare hands. Within minutes, the engagement was over. 9 hegemony vessels drifted as burning wreckage, their crews dead or dying. The human fleet had suffered exactly 0 casualties. Sarah allowed herself a grim smile as she surveyed the destruction. This was just the beginning. The quantum fleet would strike again and again, hitting supply convoys, communication relays, and isolated outposts. They would spread fear and confusion throughout the hegemony military, but more importantly, they would spread hope. Deep in the underground cities of the Cathar, the first reports were already arriving. The impossible had happened. The humans, those primitive mammals who had seemed so thoroughly beaten, had struck back. And they had won. Similar reports reached the Morvani colonies, the Zentari worlds, and a dozen other species marked for extinction. The word spread through hidden networks and secret channels. The rebellion had begun. Commander Jorik of the Cathar resistance movement stared at the intercepted hegemony communications with something approaching awe. His people had been slaves. For 3 centuries, their warrior culture systematically crushed by hegemony oppression. But now, for the first time in generations, there was hope. "Contact the humans," he told his lieutenant. "Tell them the Cathar stand ready to fight." The Quantum Storm High Regent Zixith stood before the vast viewport of his flagship, the Eternal Dominion, watching the stars with cold reptilian eyes. For 800 years, the hegemony had ruled this galaxy with absolute authority. No species had ever successfully challenged their supremacy for more than a few decades before being crushed beneath the weight of overwhelming force. Until now. The report streaming in from across hegemony space painted a picture that should have been impossible. Ghost ships appearing from nowhere, striking with lethal precision, then vanishing before retaliation could be organized. In just 2 weeks, 37 hegemony vessels had been destroyed or disabled, along with a dozen supply stations and 3 communication relays. The humans were responsible. That much was certain from the weapon signatures and tactical patterns. But how they had developed such technology was a mystery that gnawed at Zixith's pride like acid. "Status report," he commanded, his scaled hide rippling with barely contained fury. Fleet Admiral Gorvak, his subordinate, approached with obvious reluctance. The hegemony military was not known for tolerating failure, and 37 destroyed ships represented a level of incompetence that usually resulted in immediate execution. "High Regent," Gorvak began carefully, "our analysts have studied the attack patterns extensively. The human vessels appear to utilize some form of dimensional phasing technology, allowing them to exist partially outside normal spacetime." "Meaning?" Zixith's voice carried the promise of violence. "Meaning our conventional sensors cannot detect them while phased, and our weapons cannot achieve target locks. They appear at will, strike with precision, then vanish before we can respond." Zixith's claws extended involuntarily, scoring deep grooves in the viewport's metal frame. "Impossible. Human technology is centuries behind our own. They barely achieved faster than light travel when we first contacted them. Nevertheless, High Regent, the evidence is undeniable. We have sensor recordings of ships materializing inside our formations, passing through shields and armor as if they were not there." The High Regent turned away from the viewport, his towering form casting a shadow across the bridge. At 9 feet tall and covered in armored scales, he was an intimidating figure even by hegemony standards. His species, the Vorthak, had conquered dozens of worlds through a combination of advanced technology and ruthless brutality. But now, for the first time in centuries, they faced an enemy they couldn't simply overwhelm with superior numbers. "Double all patrols," Zixith ordered. "Institute randomized fleet movements. If these ghost ships rely on predictable patterns, we'll deny them that advantage." "Already implemented, High Regent. However, the human attacks have encouraged other resistance movements. We're receiving reports of uprisings on Cathar Prime, sabotage in the Morvani shipyards, and coordinated strikes against our occupation forces on 17 worlds. Zixith's eyes narrowed to slits. He had feared this would happen. The humans' impossible victories were inspiring the galaxy's oppressed species to believe they could actually win. If the rebellion spread too far, even the hegemony's vast military might would be insufficient to contain it. Accelerate the final cleansing timeline, he decided. Begin sterilization protocols immediately. Gorvak's expression showed his shock. High Regent, the Harvest Festival preparations aren't complete. Half our fleet is still— I don't care about the festival, Zixith roared, his voice echoing across the bridge. Every day we delay gives these rebels more time to spread their poison. Begin with the human homeworld. Reduce Earth to ash, and the rest of the galaxy will remember why they fear us. 24 hours later, the largest hegemony fleet in a century departed for Earth. 200 warships, including 6 planet-killer dreadnoughts, escorted by thousands of fighters and support vessels. It was a force capable of sterilizing entire star systems, and its destination was humanity's birthworld. But Admiral Sarah Chen was already waiting for them. The quantum fleet had grown in the weeks since their first victory, captured hegemony. Technology, combined with quantum drive systems, had allowed Dr. Webb's teams to complete 30 additional vessels. More importantly, they had gained allies. Commander Jorek's Kethar warriors had proven surprisingly adaptable to quantum technology. Their ships, retrofitted with human drive systems, added 40 vessels to the growing rebel fleet. The Morvani contributed their expertise in stealth systems, while the Zentari provided advanced weapons technology. What had begun as 12 ghost ships had become a coalition of liberation. Sarah stood on the Prometheus's bridge, studying the tactical display that showed the approaching hegemony armada. The enemy fleet was massive, but it was also predictable. Conventional tactics, overwhelming force. No conception of an enemy that could strike from within their own formations. That would be their downfall. All Allied fleets report ready, Admiral, Elena announced. 87 quantum-capable vessels standing by for your orders. Sarah nodded grimly. It was still a tiny force compared to the hegemony armada. But size wasn't everything. David had slain Goliath with a single stone, properly placed. Signal all ships, she commanded. Execute Phantom Storm Protocol. Time to show the hegemony what real terror looks like. The battle began in the asteroid belt beyond Mars, where the hegemony vanguard encountered what appeared to be a conventional defensive formation. 30 human vessels, outdated designs that should have been easy prey for superior alien technology. The hegemony commanders smiled as they ordered their fleet to advance. Finally, a traditional battle they could understand. They never saw the other 57 ships phasing through the asteroids behind them. Sarah watched from her position inside the enemy formation as the trap was sprung. The conventional human fleet suddenly flickered and vanished, revealing themselves as holographic decoys. At the same moment, the real quantum fleet materialized inside the hegemony ranks, their weapons already charging. The slaughter was methodical and complete. Hegemony ships found themselves bracketed by enemies that could appear and disappear at will, their weapons useless against targets that existed partially outside normal space. Within an hour, half the enemy vanguard was destroyed or disabled. But the real shock came when High Regent Zixith himself arrived with the main fleet. The Eternal Dominion was a massive vessel, over 3 kilometers long and bristling with enough firepower to crack a planet. Its shields could withstand the combined assault of a dozen fleets, and its armor was legendary throughout the galaxy. None of that mattered when the Prometheus materialized inside the flagship's bridge. Sarah walked through the quantum portal that connected her ship to the enemy vessel, her combat armor gleaming under the alien lights. Around her, hegemony crew members stared in shock at the impossible sight of a human materializing in their most secure command center. High Regent Zixith turned to face her, his massive form radiating menace and fury. "Impossible," he hissed. "No ship can penetrate our shields." "Your shields are designed to stop conventional matter," Sarah replied calmly. "We're not conventional anymore." The hegemony leader's claws extended as he prepared to strike, but Sarah was faster. The quantum disruptor in her hand sent a pulse of energy through the bridge, temporarily destabilizing local spacetime. Every hegemony system on the bridge failed simultaneously, leaving them helpless. "You want to know how we did it?" Sarah asked, her voice carrying across the silent bridge. "Simple. You taught us that overwhelming force was the only way to win, so we found a way to turn your own strength against you." Zixith's eyes narrowed. "Even if you destroy this fleet, others will come. The hegemony spans 1,000 worlds. You cannot fight us all." "We don't have to fight you all," Sarah replied. "We just have to show the galaxy that you can be beaten. The rest will take care of itself." She was right. Even as the battle raged, around Earth reports were flooding in from across hegemony space. The Kethar had retaken their homeworld. The Morvani shipyards were under rebel control. A dozen species were rising in coordinated rebellion, their confidence bolstered by the impossible sight of human ships dancing through hegemony formations like ghosts in the night. The 1,000-year empire was crumbling, brought down not by superior force but by the one thing the hegemony had never understood: hope. "Surrender," Sarah said quietly. "Order your fleets to stand down and we'll show you the mercy you never showed us." Zixith looked around his ruined bridge, at the human soldiers who had materialized from nowhere, at the tactical displays showing his fleet being systematically destroyed by an enemy he couldn't fight. For the first time in his long life, the High Regent knew fear. "I surrender," he whispered. The formal end of the hegemony empire came 3 months later, when representatives from 47 liberated worlds gathered on the neutral station of Haven's Rest to sign the Galactic Liberation Accords. Sarah stood at the podium, looking out at faces from dozens of species, all united in their newfound freedom. "Today marks not just the end of an empire," she said, her words being broadcast across the galaxy, "but the beginning of something new. We've proven that no force, no matter how powerful, can stand against the combined will of free peoples fighting for their homes and their futures." In the audience, Commander Jorik of the Kethar nodded approvingly. Dr. Webb smiled with quiet satisfaction. Captain Vasquez stood at attention, proud of what they had accomplished together. Even former hegemony officers, those who had chosen to join the new order rather than flee into exile, watched with something approaching respect. The Quantum Fleet still patrolled the galaxy, but now they served as guardians rather than warriors. The technology that had won humanity's freedom was shared freely with all species, ensuring that no single power could ever again hold the galaxy in chains. And in the hidden laboratories where it all began, new wonders were being born. Dr. Webb's teams were already working on their next breakthrough: quantum communication networks that would connect every world in real time, quantum generators that could provide unlimited clean energy, quantum medical devices that could heal injuries previously thought impossible. The age of oppression was over. The age of cooperation had begun. Sarah stood at the viewport of her flagship, now renamed the Liberation, watching the stars with eyes full of hope instead of fear. Humanity had not just survived their trial by fire, they had emerged as the galaxy's liberators, proving that even the smallest spark could ignite a flame that would burn across the cosmos. The quantum rebellion was over. The quantum renaissance had begun.